Henrique had spent his whole life learning to carry everything alone. The weight of expectations, the pressure, the guilt that gnawed at him in the dead of night. He thought control was the same as survival, until one muggy morning proved him wrong. And that's when she appeared. Clara Meneses, the young woman who cleaned the hallways in silence, who walked invisible among hurried executives. She, who also carried unspoken pains. She who was supposed to do nothing more than empty trash cans, but in that moment, when the floor seemed to swallow Henrique whole, she did something no one else would. She stayed. And with that gesture, simple, dangerous, impossible to explain, everything changed. Because sometimes love doesn't start with flowers or promises. Sometimes it starts with two trembling hands holding a stranger's face and a soft voice saying, "Breathe, please, just breathe. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart." Henrique couldn't pinpoint exactly when the tightness had begun. Maybe it was during the 8 a.m. meeting when the board demanded results he knew were impossible, or perhaps days earlier, when he'd looked in the mirror and hadn't recognized the tired man staring back. It didn't matter, because on that grey September morning, as the rain began to streak the windows like tiny fractures in the world, his body simply gave out. He was alone, always alone. His legs buckled first, then came the dizziness, the shortness of breath, the brutal clench in his chest that threw him against the table, and then onto the cold floor. Henrique tried to scream, but no sound came out. Is this how it ends? The question sliced through his mind like a sharp blade, and for one terrifying instant, he accepted it. He closed his eyes, waited for the darkness to claim him completely. That's when he heard the door open. Hurried footsteps, someone kneeling beside him, small, firm hands touching his face. Hey, look at me. Please, look at me." The voice was gentle, trembling, but determined. Henrique forced his eyes open, and that's when he saw her. Clara. He knew who she was, vaguely. The young woman who cleaned the floor in the afternoons, always in her navy blue uniform, always discreet, always quick. But now, kneeling on the floor beside him, she seemed like a different person. Her brown eyes were wide with fear, but they didn't waver. She held his face with both hands, as if trying to anchor his soul back into his body. "Breathe with me, okay? Slowly. Inhale. That's it. Exhale." Clara pulled her phone from her pocket with one hand, dialed 911, but didn't let go of Henrique. She stayed there, repeating the words softly, synchronizing her own breath with his. Henrique felt something strange, something he hadn't felt in years. Relief. It wasn't just the oxygen returning to his lungs. It was something else. Her presence. The faint scent of lavender from her uniform, the gentle firmness of her small hands. He tried to speak, but she shook her head. "Don't talk. Just breathe. Help is coming." And she stayed, even when they heard voices in the hallway, even when the security guards appeared, followed by the medical team. Clara only moved away when she had to, and even then, her eyes remained fixed on Henrique, as if to ensure he kept breathing. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe to receive heartwarming stories every day. Henrique was taken to the hospital. Severe anxiety attack, the doctor said. Extreme exhaustion. Recommendation for rest, psychological follow-up, change of routine. But as he lay on the gurney, as the nurses checked his vital signs, Henrique could only think of one thing. She stayed. No one else would have. His team would have panicked. His colleagues would have called someone and fled. But Clara knelt, held his face, breathed with him. And now, hours later, with his chest still tight but his body more stable, Henrique felt something new growing inside him. Something dangerous, something inevitable. Gratitude? No, it was more than that. It was as if, for the first time in years, someone had truly seen him. 3 days later, Henrique returned to the office. Everyone was polite, solicitous. They asked how he was, offered to help with reports, but no one looked him in the eye, except Clara. She was pushing her cleaning cart down the hallway when Henrique passed. Their eyes met for just 2 seconds. But those 2 seconds cut through the air like glass. Henrique stopped. Clara stopped too. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. "Thank you. You saved me. Why did you stay?" But the words wouldn't come. Clara lowered her eyes, gripping the handle of the cart. "I'm glad you're doing better," she murmured, and continued on her way. Henrique stood frozen in the empty hallway, listening to the distant sound of the cart's wheels, and for the first time in a long time, he felt his heart beat in a different way. Not from fear, not from pressure, from a desire to run after her, a desire to ask her full name, her story, what she liked to do on weekends, a desire to understand why, out of all the people in the world, she was the one who appeared when he needed her most. But Henrique Duarte was a man of control, so he returned to his office, closed the door, and sat in his leather chair. And for the first time since he'd returned, he allowed himself to think of her, Clara. The name sounded soft, like a promise whispered in a low voice. He didn't know it yet, but that encounter, that instant on the cold floor, with the rain falling outside and her hands holding his face, had just changed the course of their lives forever. Clara Menezes had always known what it was like to be invisible. She had grown up that way, daughter of a domestic worker raised in the back rooms of large houses, learning from an early age not to make noise, not to take up space. Her mother, Dona Lourdes, always said, "Clara, people like us have to be discreet. Life is easier when no one notices." And Clara believed it. For years, she believed it. She worked in silence, studied at night, finished high school by fits and starts, dreamed quietly of going to nursing school one day, but then her mother got sick, and the dreams had to wait. Dona Lourdes died 6 months before that rainy morning, and since then, Clara had walked through the world as if a part of her had also gone. Naquela tarde, depois de cruzar com Henrique no corredor, Clara entrou no banheiro do porão e trancou a porta. Apoiou as mãos na pia. Respirou fundo. "Por que você fez aquilo?" Ela não sabia. Quando abriu a porta da sala e viu o corpo dele caído no chão, não pensou. Agiu. Como se algo maior do que ela mesma tivesse tomado controle. E agora, dias depois, sentia o peso daquele gesto. Porque todo mundo estava comentando. As outras faxineiras sussurravam quando ela passava. Os seguranças a olhavam com curiosidade. E ontem, a supervisora a chamou para uma conversa. "Clara, só quero deixar claro uma coisa", disse a mulher de braços cruzados. "O Sr. Duarte é um homem importante. O que você fez foi bonito, mas... Cuidado, não confunda as coisas." Clara sentiu o rosto queimar. "Eu só ajudei, Dona Regina. Qualquer pessoa teria feito o mesmo." A supervisora riu sem humor. "Qualquer pessoa, não. Você fez. E agora todo mundo está de olho." Clara saiu daquela sala com um nó na garganta. Confundir as coisas? Ela nem sabia o que sentia, mas sabia que desde aquele dia algo tinha mudado. Henrique Duarte não era homem de se abrir. Cresceu sendo o irmão mais velho, o responsável, o que segurava as pontas quando o pai sumia e a mãe chorava baixinho na cozinha. Aprendeu cedo que chorar era perda de tempo, que sentir demais era perigoso, e deu certo, por um tempo. Ele construiu uma carreira sólida, subiu rápido, foi promovido, ganhou respeito, mas em algum lugar do caminho perdeu a si mesmo e perdeu Leonardo, seu irmão mais novo, Léo, que sempre foi o oposto dele. Sensível, sonhador, impulsivo, Léo, que entrou em depressão aos 23 anos e não conseguiu sair. Léo, que ligou para Henrique numa noite de dezembro, 6 anos atrás, e disse: "Eu não aguento mais, mano." Henrique estava no meio de uma apresentação importante. Disse que ligaria de volta, mas quando ligou já era tarde. Desde então, Henrique carregava Léo nas costas. Cada decisão, cada conquista, cada noite insone. E a ansiedade, que antes era só um incômodo, virou uma presença constante. Ele tomava remédios, fazia terapia, às vezes. Mas não contava para ninguém, porque homens como ele não desabam. Exceto que ele desabou, e foi Clara quem segurou. Henrique tentou não pensar nela, mas era impossível. Sempre que passava pelo corredor, procurava o uniforme azul marinho. Sempre que ouvia passos, virava a cabeça. E à noite, sozinho no apartamento silencioso, lembrava das mãos dela segurando seu rosto. Por que ela ficou? Ninguém ficava. Nem a ex-noiva, que o deixou quando percebeu que ele nunca estaria realmente presente. Nem os amigos, que desistiram de convidá-lo para sair. Nem ele mesmo, que há anos fugia de si. Mas Clara ficou. E agora, Henrique sentia algo que não sabia nomear. Não era apenas gratidão, era curiosidade, necessidade. Ele queria saber quem ela era, de onde vinha, o que a fazia sorrir. Mas também sabia que não podia, porque entre eles havia um abismo. Ele, diretor-geral, ela, faxineira. E o mundo não perdoava esse tipo de travessia. Numa quinta-feira à tarde, Henrique ficou até tarde no escritório. Todos já tinham ido embora. Ele estava terminando um relatório quando ouviu o som distante do carrinho de limpeza. O coração disparou. Henrique levantou, caminhou até a porta, abriu devagar e a viu. Clara estava no final do corredor, limpando uma das salas de reunião. Ele ficou parado, apenas observando. A forma como ela trabalhava era cuidadosa. Ela não apenas passava o pano, arrumava as cadeiras com atenção, ajeitava os quadros tortos, como se quisesse deixar tudo melhor do que encontrou. Henrique sentiu algo apertar no peito. Ela se importa, mesmo com algo tão pequeno, mesmo invisível. E foi nesse instante que Clara virou a cabeça. Seus olhos se encontraram. Ela congelou. Ele também. Por longos segundos, nenhum dos dois se moveu. Então, sem pensar, Henrique murmurou: "Obrigado." Clara piscou, confusa. "Senhor, por aquele dia, eu nunca agradeci direito." Ela baixou os olhos, segurando firme o pano de limpeza. "Não precisa agradecer. Qualquer um teria feito." "Não." A voz dele saiu mais firme do que pretendia. "Não teria." Silêncio. Clara ergueu o olhar lentamente. E pela primeira vez, Henrique viu além da faxineira. Viu a mulher. Os olhos cansados, mas gentis. A postura discreta, mas digna. A força silenciosa que ela carregava. E algo dentro dele se partiu. "Como você se chama?" Ele perguntou baixinho. Clara hesitou. Clara Menezes." Henrique repetiu mentalmente, como quem guarda algo precioso. "Clara." Ela assentiu, ainda tensa. Então, antes que qualquer um pudesse dizer mais alguma coisa, ela murmurou: "Tenho que terminar o turno." E se foi. Mas Henrique ficou parado no corredor vazio, repetindo o nome dela em silêncio: Clara Menezes. E soube, com uma certeza que o assustava, que aquele não seria o último encontro, porque algo havia começado, algo inevitável, algo que nenhum dos dois conseguiria parar. A empresa tinha regras, não escritas, mas absolutas. Diretores não conversavam com faxineiras. Executivos não desciam ao porão. E quem ousasse cruzar essas linhas invisíveis pagava o preço. Clara sempre soube disso. Por isso, nas semanas seguintes àquele encontro no corredor, ela fez o possível para evitar Henrique Duarte. Mudou seus horários. Limpava os andares em ordem diferente. Entrava e saía das salas com velocidade cirúrgica. Mas mesmo assim, sentia quando ele estava por perto. Era como se o ar mudasse. Henrique, por outro lado, não conseguia parar de procurá-la. Não de forma óbvia. Ele ainda era discreto, controlado, mas começou a perceber pequenos detalhes que antes ignorava. O cheiro de lavanda que ficava nos corredores depois que ela passava. A forma como as cadeiras das salas de reunião ficavam perfeitamente alinhadas. O bilhete colado na geladeira da copa. Café novo feito às 15 horas. Aproveitem! A letra era delicada, cuidadosa, clara, e quanto mais ele reparava, mais queria saber. Foi Marcela, a secretária executiva, quem primeiro percebeu. Você tá diferente, ela comentou numa tarde, entregando relatórios. Henrique ergueu os olhos dos papéis. Como assim? Sei lá, mais distraído. Ele desviou o olhar. Deve ser o remédio novo que o médico receitou. Marcela não pareceu convencida, mas não insistiu. Ainda assim, Henrique sentiu o peso da observação. Eu preciso parar com isso, mas não conseguia. Clara, meanwhile, had her own issues. Juliana, one of the other cleaning staff, never missed a chance to needle her. "Oh, here comes the savior now," she said one day, as they were organizing the carts in the locker room. Clara pretended not to hear. "What's up? Lost your voice?" Juliana pressed. "I thought you were going to be the boss now too." "Juliana, stop it." "No way. Everyone saw the cameras, Clara. You on your knees, holding him. Quite a scene, huh?" Clara's face burned. "I just helped. Anyone would have done the same." "Anyone wouldn't. You did, and now everyone's talking." "Talking about what?" Juliana smiled maliciously. "That you've got your eye on the director." Clara felt a chill run through her. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Juliana crossed her arms. "Then why do you blush every time he walks by?" Clara didn't answer because she had no answer. That night, alone on the bus ride home, Clara rested her forehead against the cold window. What have I done? She hadn't done anything wrong. She had just helped a man who was dying. But now, somehow, it had turned into something else. Rumors, stares, whispers, and worse. She couldn't deny what she felt. Because every time she saw Henrique, her heart raced. Every time she heard his voice in the hallway, she'd stop unintentionally. And every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the moment she held his face and felt, for the first time in months, that she had a purpose. This is wrong. She knew, but the heart didn't understand logic. Henrique, meanwhile, was trying to focus on a meeting when his phone buzzed. A text from his mum. "Son, when are you coming for dinner? You've gone MIA." He typed a quick reply, but stopped halfway. When was the last time I actually stopped? He couldn't remember. His whole life he'd been running, built a career, accumulated achievements, but he'd never stopped to ask, what for? And now, for the first time, he felt a void that no promotion could fill. Clara. Her name came back insistently. Henrique closed his eyes, took a deep breath. This is crazy. He couldn't get involved with an employee, especially not someone from another department, especially not someone like her, invisible to the rest of the world, but who, somehow, had become the only thing he could see. The following Friday, Henrique stayed late again. Not because he had to, but because he knew Clara would be there. And she was. He found her in the break room, washing the coffee carafe. She didn't see him enter. Henrique stood in the doorway, watching. Clara was humming softly, a gentle tune he didn't recognize. And there was something so peaceful about the moment. As if, for an instant, the whole world had slowed down. Then she turned and saw him. She froze. "Sorry," Henrique murmured. "Didn't mean to startle you." Clara dried her hands on her apron, tense. "It's okay, I was just finishing up." Silence. Henrique knew he should leave, but his feet wouldn't move. "Do you like working here?" he asked without thinking. Clara blinked, confused. "Excuse me? Here, at the company, do you, like it?" She hesitated. "It's a job. Pays the bills." "But do you like it?" Clara stared at him, now with something close to irritation. "Why are you asking that, sir?" Enrique didn't have an answer. Or rather, he did, but he couldn't say it. "Because I want to know everything about you." Instead, he said, "Just curious." Clara nodded slowly, but there was suspicion in her eyes. "I have to go." And this time, she was the one who left first. But Enrique remained standing in the empty break room, feeling something growing inside him. It's not just gratitude. It was something else, something dangerous, something inevitable. And he was starting to realize that no matter how much he tried to ignore it, it was already too late. She was already inside him. It was a letter that changed everything. Enrique hadn't planned to write it. But on an insomniac dawn, when the silent apartment seemed to amplify every thought, he picked up pen and paper and began. "Clara, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't even know if I should give it to you. But I need to try to explain what I feel. Because I can't pretend anymore that everything is normal. Since that day, when you held me and brought me back, something changed. It wasn't just because you saved me. It was the way you did it. You didn't hesitate. You didn't count the cost. You just stayed. And now I can't stop thinking about you." Enrique paused, reread the words. "This is crazy." But he kept writing. "I know there's a whole world between us. I know you probably see me only as the distant, cold, unapproachable boss. And maybe I am all of that. But with you, I feel like I can be someone else, someone who doesn't have to carry everything alone. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know you matter more than you imagine. Enrique." He folded the letter, put it in his jacket pocket, and for days he carried it, lacking the courage to deliver it. Clara, meanwhile, was trying to rebuild her defenses. But they cracked every time she saw Enrique, and he seemed to be everywhere, in the hallway, in the break room, passing by the reception desk exactly when she arrived. Coincidence? She wanted to believe it, but something in his gaze said otherwise. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything came crashing down. Clara was tidying up Enrique's office. He had stepped out for an off-site meeting. Or at least, that's what she thought. Because when she finished wiping down the conference table, she heard the door close. She turned, startled. Enrique stood there, jacket slung over his arm, tie slightly loosened. "Sorry," he said softly. "Forgot my laptop." Clara nodded, tense, and stepped aside, but Enrique didn't move. He just looked at her, and there was something different in his gaze. Something intense. "Clara." His voice was rough. She swallowed hard. "Yes, I need to tell you something." Her heart leaped. "Mr. Duarte, Enrique!" He took a step forward. "Call me Enrique." Clara backed away, pressing herself against the table. I can't stop thinking about you." The words tumbled out. Clara froze. Enrique closed his eyes as if fighting himself. "I know it's wrong. I know I shouldn't be saying this, but Clara, since that day, He opened his eyes, and there was desperation there. "You brought me back, and now I can't go back to who I was before." The silence that followed was deafening. Clara felt her heart pounding so hard it ached. "Mr. Duarte, Enrique, Enrique." She forced her voice to be firm. "You don't know me. I do. You're confusing gratitude with, I'm not." "Yes, you are." Clara felt her eyes sting. "Because if it weren't for that day, you wouldn't even know my name." Enrique took another step. "You're right, but that doesn't change how I feel now." Clara shook her head, distressed. "This is insane. You're my boss." You're what?" "Nobody." The word came out like a slap. "I'm nobody, Mr. Duarte. And you're—" She gestured vaguely. "All of this office, this life." Enrique felt something within him break. "You really think I care about that?" "You should. because the rest of the world does. Silence. Clara seized the opportunity to move around the table, creating distance. But before she could leave, Enrique spoke. "I wrote you a letter." She stopped. "What?" Enrique pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and held it out to her. Clara looked at the letter as if it were a bomb. "I can't accept this. Please, no. Clara, no." She met his eyes, tears welling up. "You don't understand what this means to me. If anyone finds out, I lose everything. My job, my reputation, everything." Enrique lowered his hand, still holding the letter. "I won't let that happen. You can't promise that. I can. You can't." Clara wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Because you don't live in my world. You don't know what it's like to be invisible, to be judged for everything, to—" Her voice cracked. "What it's like to lose everything and have to start from scratch." Enrique felt each word like a stab. "Then let me try to understand." "No." "Why?" "Because I feel it too," she wanted to scream. "Because every time I see you, my heart races. Because I dream about you. Because when I held your face that day, something inside me woke up." But instead, Clara murmured, "Because this won't work." And she left, leaving Enrique alone in the office holding the letter she would never read. And for the first time in years, he let tears fall. That night, Clara cried on the bus ride home. She cried for the mother who was no longer there. She cried for the life she never had. She cried for Enrique Duarte, the man who, impossibly, had somehow found his way into her heart. And she cried because she knew, as much as she wanted it, she couldn't have it. It wasn't for people like her. Enrique, meanwhile, sat on the office floor until late into the night, the letter still in his hands. And for the first time, he understood what Leonardo must have felt. Loneliness isn't being alone, it's being surrounded by people and still not being seen. And now, finally, someone saw him, but he couldn't have her, because the world was cruel. And love, sometimes, wasn't enough to overcome the barriers. Or was it? The letter was forgotten in a drawer. Enrique returned to his routine, meetings, reports, decisions. But something had been extinguished within him. He avoided the hallway where Clara worked. He left earlier, came back later, did everything he could to avoid crossing paths with her, because it was easier that way. Or it should have been. Clara, on the other hand, felt his absence like an open wound. She knew she had done the right thing, stepping away, protecting herself, protecting him. But that didn't make the pain any less. At night, alone in the small room she shared with her cousin, she held her pillow to her chest and let tears fall in silence. Why did he have to say that? It would have been easier if he had just thanked her and moved on. But he didn't. He looked at her as if she were important. And now Clara could no longer feel invisible because someone had seen her, and that someone was exactly who she couldn't have. The weeks passed slowly. Enrique threw himself into work with an intensity that even worried Marcela. "You're killing yourself again," she said one afternoon, watching him review the same report for the third time. "I'm fine." "You're not." Marcela crossed her arms. "And everyone notices." Enrique didn't reply, because she was right. He wasn't fine. He was worse than before his collapse, because now, in addition to anxiety, there was something else. Longing. Longing for someone he barely knew. Longing for a possibility that never existed. Clara, meanwhile, had her own challenges. Her supervisor called her in again. "Clara, I'll be direct." Ms. Regina adjusted her glasses. "It's come to my attention that you and Mr. Duarte had a private conversation." Clara's blood ran cold. "It was just work-related. That's not what people are saying." "Who's saying it?" Ms. Regina sighed. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you need to be careful. This kind of rumor can cost you your job." Clara felt the world spin. "I didn't do anything wrong." "I know, but sometimes it doesn't matter what you did. It matters what people think you did. With that, Ms. Regina dismissed her. Clara left the office on shaky legs. This is unfair. She hadn't done anything. She had just helped. She had just existed. But now, somehow, her existence had become a problem. That night, Clara requested a departmental transfer. She filled out the form with trembling hands. She checked the box, personal reasons, and submitted it to HR the next day. Enrique found out 3 days later. Marcela walked into his office without knocking. "You know Clara requested a transfer." He looked up from his papers. "What?" "The cleaner, the one who helped you, she asked to move floors." Enrique felt the ground disappear. "When?" "Last week. It was approved today. She starts in the annex building Monday." Marcela watched him closely. "Are you okay?" Enrique didn't answer because he wasn't okay. He was shattered. "She's running from me," and he couldn't blame her. But it hurt. It hurt in a way he hadn't realized was possible. On Friday, Clara's last day in the building, Enrique did something he never would have considered. He went down to the basement. He found her in the locker room, packing her belongings into her locker. Clara turned at the sound of footsteps and froze when she saw him. "Mr. Duarte, don't go!" His voice cracked. Clara closed her eyes. "I have to." "Why?" "You know why." Enrique took a step forward. "If this is because of me, it's not just you." Clara turned to face him. "It's me too, because I—" Her voice faltered. "I can't stay here and pretend I don't feel anything." Silence. Enrique felt his heart explode. "You feel something?" Clara wiped away a tear that escaped. "It doesn't matter what I feel, because this will never work." "How do you know?" "Because I know how the world works." She laughed humorlessly. "You can come down here and say nice things, but upstairs when the other directors ask, what are you going to say? That you're interested in the cleaner?" Enrique opened his mouth, but she continued. "Exactly. You don't have an answer. Because even if you feel something, it doesn't change the fact that we live in different worlds. Then let me into yours." "No." "Why?" "Because I don't want to be your charity project." Clara grabbed her bag, ready to leave. "I don't want to be the person you save to feel better about your own guilt." Enrique felt like he'd been punched. "You really think that's what this is?" Clara looked at him for a long moment, and then softly she murmured, "I think you're confused, and I can't stay here waiting for you to figure out what you really want." And with that, she left. She left Enrique alone in the empty locker room, surrounded by the scent of lavender and the devastating certainty that he had lost something precious, something he might never get back. That night, Enrique returned to his apartment and finally allowed himself to break down. He cried for the brother he hadn't saved. He cried for the life he had built, but that had never made him happy. And he cried for Clara, the woman who, in just a few encounters, had managed to see in him what no one else did, and now she was gone. Because he didn't know how to fight for her, because he was afraid, because the world between them was too big, or was it? Enrique picked up his phone. He opened his contacts. He found the number of the therapist he hadn't called in months, and for the first time in a long time, he asked for help. Because he realized something fundamental. Before fighting for Clara, he needed to fight for himself. And maybe, just maybe, there was still time. 3 weeks passed. Enrique didn't see Clara once, but he thought about her every day. He was keeping the promise he made to himself, to take care of himself first. He went back to therapy, adjusted his medication, started delegating tasks at work, and for the first time in years, he took a week off. Marcela almost fainted when he announced it. "You? Vacation?" "Yeah." Enrique managed a weak smile. "I know. Surreal. But he needed it. He needed to breathe, to think, to understand what he truly wanted. And at the end of that week, alone in a rented beach house, he finally had his answer. Clara. He wanted Clara, not because she saved him, not because he felt guilty, but because she made him feel alive. For the first time in years, he wanted something beyond goals and achievements. He wanted to laugh with someone. He wanted to share silences. He wanted to wake up and know he wasn't alone, and he wanted that person to be her. But how? Clara, meanwhile, was trying to rebuild her routine. The annex building was different, smaller, older, and far enough away that she wouldn't have to think about Enrique Duarte. Or so she thought. But he was everywhere. In the smell of coffee in the morning, in the sound of rain hitting the windows, in the music playing on the break room radio. Clara missed him in a way that made no sense. How do you miss someone you barely knew? But she did, and worse. She wondered if she had made the right decision. It was on a rainy afternoon that everything changed. Clara was organizing her belongings in the locker room when something fell from the pocket of her old uniform, a photograph, her and her mother smiling by the open window of their old apartment. Clara held the photo carefully, her chest tightening. "Mom, I'm so lost." And then she realized that photo shouldn't be here. She was sure she had left it at home. Unless I dropped it at the building. Her heart pounded. Could it still be there? Enrique returned to work the following Monday, lighter, more present. Marcela noticed immediately. "Wow, who are you? And what did you do to my boss?" Enrique laughed, just catching up on some rest. But there was something different, a new determination, because he had made a decision. He was going after Clara. He didn't know how. He didn't know what he would say, but he would go, and it was that afternoon, while organizing papers in his office, that he saw it. The photograph. It was on the floor between his desk and the cleaning cart someone had forgotten there. Enrique picked up the photo carefully, and his heart stopped. Clara and an older woman, likely her mother, smiling. There was so much light in that image, so much life. Enrique turned the photo over. On the back, a date, 03/11/2022, and a handwritten message. "Mom, thank you for everything. I love you. Clara." Enrique felt something break inside him. She lost her mother, and suddenly everything made sense. The sadness in her eyes, the way she took care of everything with such tenderness, the loneliness she carried. She was alone too. Enrique put the photo in his jacket pocket, and he knew what he had to do. The next afternoon, Enrique did something he never imagined he would. He went to the annex building. He asked to speak with the supervisor, Mrs. Davies, a woman in her early 50s, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, received him with suspicion. "Mr. Duarte, what brings you here?" Enrique took a deep breath. "I need to speak with Clara Menezes." Mrs. Davies crossed her arms. "Why?" "She forgot something in the main building. I can take it for you. I'll deliver it." "No." Enrique kept his tone firm. "I need to give it to her personally." Silence. Mrs. Davies assessed him for long seconds. Then she sighed. "Mr. Duarte, with all due respect, I don't know what happened between you two, but Clara requested a transfer for a reason, and if you truly care about her, you'll respect that." Enrique felt each word like a stab, but he didn't back down. "I understand, but..." He pulled the photo from his pocket. "She needs this, and I need to return it." Mrs. Davies looked at the photo, and something in her face softened. "All right. She finishes her shift at 6. You can wait for her at the exit." Enrique nodded, grateful. "Thank you." At precisely 6 o'clock, Clara exited the annex building. She was tired. The week had been long. All she wanted was to go home, take a hot shower, and sleep. But then she saw him. Enrique was standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, his face tense. Clara stopped mid-stride. No, she wasn't ready for this. She turned around, ready to go back inside the building, but he called out to her, "Clara, wait!" She closed her eyes. "Please, no." "I just need a minute," he continued. Clara turned around slowly. "What do you want?" Enrique took a few steps forward, maintaining a respectful distance. "You forgot this." And he extended the photograph. Clara felt the world stop. Where did you find this?" "In the office. It fell off the cart." She took the photo with trembling hands, looking at the image of her mother, and the tears came. "I thought I'd lost it. I'm sorry it took me so long to return it. Enrique hesitated. "I wanted to wait for the right moment." Clara wiped away her tears, still holding the photo against her chest. "Thank you." Silence. Enrique took another step. "Can I ask you a question?" Clara didn't answer. "Why did you stay? That day? Why didn't you just call for help and leave?" Clara looked up at him, and for the first time she told the truth. "Because I know what it's like to be dying and have no one around." Her voice came out broken. "My mother died alone. I wasn't there, and I didn't want you to go through that." Enrique felt his chest explode. "Clara, I know you think you feel something for me, but you don't know me. You don't know what it's like to wake up every day and have to pretend that everything is okay. You don't know what it's like to lose the only person who truly loved you and have to move on as if nothing happened." "I do." Enrique's voice was hoarse. "My brother died by suicide 6 years ago, and I wasn't there because I was too busy, too important. And ever since then, I've carried that guilt every single day." Silence. Clara stared at him, seeing him truly for the first time. "He's broken too." "I'm not trying to save you, Clara," Enrique continued. I just want to be near you, because when I am, I feel less alone." Her tears fell harder. "This is very complicated. I know the world won't accept it. I know you'll regret it. I won't." Clara shook her head, desperate. "How can you be so sure?" And Enrique, for the first time, allowed himself to be completely honest. "Because since that day, you're the only thing that makes me want to wake up in the morning." And in that instant, under the dim streetlight, with the rain beginning to fall again, Clara finally understood. He wasn't confused. He was in love, and so was she. Clara didn't say anything that night. She just put away the photograph, thanked him again, and left. But something had changed. Because she had finally allowed the truth to touch her heart, she loved him too. In the following days, Enrique didn't seek her out. He knew he needed to give her space, but he wrote. Every day he wrote little letters he never sent, about his day, his doubts, his fears, as if somehow by writing to her, he could keep Clara close. Clara, on her part, was at war with herself. Part of her wanted to run to Enrique and say, "Yes, yes, I feel it. Yes, I want to try. Yes, I'm in love too." But the other part, the part that grew up invisible, that learned not to dream too big, screamed, "This will end badly. You'll get hurt. He'll realize you're not enough." And it was on a Friday night, when Clara was alone in her room, that she finally made a decision. She picked up her phone. She opened Enrique's contact, which he'd jotted down on the back of a pay stub, and she typed, "Do you still want to talk?" She sent it before she could regret it. The reply came 2 minutes later. "Always." They met the following Saturday, at a small cafe far from the buildings, away from familiar eyes. Clara arrived first. She was nervous. Her hands were sweating, her heart was racing, but when Enrique walked in and their eyes met, something inside her calmed. It was him. Enrique sat down across from her, also tense. "Thank you for coming." Clara nodded. Silence. Then she took a deep breath and said, "I spent this whole week trying to find reasons not to be here, trying to convince myself this was crazy, that we wouldn't work, that it was better to give up before we even started. Henrique listened, his heart aching. And did you succeed? Clara smiled faintly. No, because every time I tried to get you out of my head, I remembered that day. And how, for the first time in months, I felt like I mattered to someone. Henrique reached his hand across the table. Clara looked at his hand, and slowly she intertwined their fingers. I'm scared, she confessed. Me too. What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? Clara laughed, tears in her eyes. Do you always have an answer for everything? No. Henrique squeezed her hand. But I want to find the answers with you. And in that moment, Clara allowed herself to believe. Maybe love was enough. The following months were challenging. Henrique resigned from his director position. The news shocked the company, but he didn't regret it. Because he realized something fundamental. That job never made him happy. He was there out of obligation, out of guilt, out of fear of disappointing others. But now, for the first time, he wanted something different. He wanted time. He wanted peace. He wanted to live, and he wanted all of it with Clara. Clara, for her part, went back to school. With Henrique's encouragement, she enrolled in a nursing program, and for the first time in years, she felt hope. Maybe there was still time for dreams. They faced judgment, suspicious glances, nasty comments, friends who drifted away, but they also found support. Marcella, surprisingly, was one of the first to congratulate them. I always knew there was something, she said with a smile. And if you're happy, screw the rest of them. Donna Marta, their supervisor, also surprised them. Life's too short to let fear win, she told Clara one afternoon. I spent years alone because I was too scared to take a chance. Don't make the same mistake. And little by little, Henrique and Clara built something new. Not perfect, but real. On a rainy night, exactly 1 year after that day in the office, Henrique took Clara back to the building. It was empty, silent. He led her to the room where it all began. Clara looked around, remembering. Why are we here? Henrique turned to her, taking her hands. Because this is where my life started over. He kissed her hands. And I wanted to ask you something. In this place, where it all began. Clara felt her heart race. Henrique got down on one knee and took a small box from his pocket. I don't have much. I'm not a director anymore. I don't have a penthouse, but I have you. And if you'll have me, I promise to spend the rest of my life making you feel how much you matter. Clara's tears fell. You're crazy. Henrique smiled. Completely. So, will you marry me? Clara knelt down too, cupping his face in her hands. Yes. And there, on the cold floor where it all began, they kissed. Finally. 2 years later, Clara graduated with her nursing degree. Henrique started a small consulting firm, helping companies improve their employees' mental well-being. They lived in a simple apartment, but one full of life. There were pictures on the walls, plants on the balcony, and always the scent of lavender. One Saturday morning, Clara woke up to Henrique making coffee. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him. What is it? He asked, smiling. Nothing. Just, I'm happy. Henrique put his mug down and walked over to her. Me too. Clara wrapped her arms around his neck. Do you regret it? Leaving everything behind? Henrique pulled her close. Not for a second, because I didn't leave everything behind. I left what didn't matter, and I gained everything that truly does. Clara kissed him slowly. I love you. I love you too. And in that moment, they heard the rain begin to fall outside, but this time there was no fear, no loneliness, just the two of them, together, finally home. And that's how two broken hearts discovered that love, when it's true, always finds a way. And what did you think of this story? What was the moment that touched your heart the most? Leave it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way you'll never miss our love stories.